Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. This is the old man from the digital world. Happy to be here with you. It is August 1st. You may notice from the background, we've moved our studios over at the No Sound Bites Allowed, as well as the old man in a digital world. We're now in the Bronx, New York, instead of upstate New York. A lot of reasons, a lot of things have been happening. Life has been interesting. But today, I'm in the Bronx. I was with my sister, and we had some time, and we sat down. My sister was flipping through a couple of channels, and she said, "Hey, here's something. Just saw it. Brand new. It's Twisted Metal. It's on Peacock, obviously, a channel that no one really subscribes to. I think they've got like 1 million subscribers on YouTube. No one really pays attention to the Peacock channel at all. And when you see Twisted Metal, you will understand why no one pays attention to this channel. This is a hot mess. Oh my God, how have they ruined this? Now, I'm older than most people that may be on YouTube. You know, I'm 55, half a century old. I remember the late 80s. I remember the Twisted Metal games that came out. They were a huge game. They had a huge following. These were the games that were made in memory of Roger Corman's, Death Race. They were done in the, they were inspired by Roger Corman's Death Race 2000, which was a great movie. David Carradine, lots of fun. Sylvester Stallone, real tongue-in-cheek sci-fi. It was interesting. But then we come to today, 2023. We have gender identity politics. We have the Hollywood mandate for diversity and inclusion. And wow, we get one of the weirdest movies I've seen. Actually, I keep saying it's a movie. It's actually a TV series. 10 episodes, which you really could have whittled down into a halfway decent 30-minute mini film. Seriously, there is everything wrong with this, but I want to tell you about it so you really don't want to watch this. It came out on July 27th. I just found out about it. There's been no advertising about it that I noticed. My sister didn't notice it either. We saw nothing about this that made any sense, and I've got to tell you guys, this is the weirdest show. So let's try and wrap this up. We start off and we find out that it's 20 years somewhere in the future. So we're not exactly sure when it started and when that 20-year leap to the future went. The first episode does not explain what's going on. We don't get a good backstory. We don't get a good understanding of what is this new world, how the world got to be like it is. It is dystopian. It's somewhat Mad Max. And they really tried their best to steal from a lot of other good shows. At one point, they're even stealing the soundtrack and what they call an homage to Clockwork Orange. It's just so obvious. But the first 3 episodes, I have no idea what's going on. It's not clear who these characters are, what they're doing, why they're doing it, what this world is. But what we do know is our main lead, the main supposed hero that's taking us through this story, is a guy that we call John Doe. He's a milkman. What is a milkman? I have no idea. Basically, he's a delivery service. It's kind of like the postman from back in the day, that movie. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We start off, by the way, this scene you're seeing right now, this is the opening action scene. You see all the cars and the driving through a mall. We get a call back to the Twisted Metal game because it flies onto the hood of the car. We have a bunch of 80s music. We've got a bunch of different Foot Locker. They mentioned Foot Locker and a few other stores that are older. And our protagonist, Anthony Mackie, he doesn't know his past. It's long-term amnesia. A trope, absolutely. All he knows, he woke up in a car, and he knows how to fix cars. He knows how to drive cars. We have no idea why. He doesn't even know how he knows how to drive cars and fix cars. Has no idea. He's got a picture, burned up picture of part of his family. His sister in the background. The only two faces you can actually see are him and his sister, which I pointed out to my sister early on. I was like, hey, wait a minute. He's got a sister. Obviously, it's going to come up in the story. It does. In the last minute and a half of the show, we get to finally see his sister. Makes no sense. So we don't know what a milkman is, other than they're a delivery service of some sort. Doesn't explain how they get paid. Doesn't explain how they make their deals, their runs. It doesn't explain the system that's been created, how the world works. Nothing's explained. This is just nothing. It is so bizarre. But I get the idea behind it at the back end. They had ideas. They were trying to fill in the background of a video game that basically was Death Race 2000. That was basically Carmageddon. It was one of those games where you get into a car and you just blow up stuff. Your car blows up other cars. That's it. It's one of those kinds of games, and they're trying to give it a story, except they don't know what story they want to tell. They don't even know how to write this story. These writers are on strike, and this is an example of what they want to get paid more money for. I swear to God, I couldn't tell you for the first 7 episodes what was going on. And I only continued to watch it, quite honestly, is because I was going to make this review. It makes no sense whatsoever. We don't know what... And by the way, the character you're seeing on screen right now, this character Anthony Mackie is playing in the first episode, in the opening scene. It's about 10-15 minutes long. You don't get to see that guy ever again. That's not the character that's in the rest of the series. Immediately after he gets out of this mall, he becomes an entirely different character. His love interest, and just like the Marvels and Disney Plus, we see that once again it's bait and switch characteristics. Let me try and show you a little bit of what I'm talking about here. Let's talk a little bit about the actors themselves. So Anthony Mackie, his character is named John Doe. He has no backstory, really. He's miraculously able to fix a car and drive cars. It takes us 8 episodes before we get any hint of any backstory to him, which is only very partially filled out, and it doesn't make sense. Throughout this series, we constantly are getting moments where you'll be watching it and instantly, without any kind of notification, you're in a flashback. They just suddenly have you're watching one thing and then suddenly you're just in the next scene. You're apparently 20 years into the past, at least 20 years into the past. No transition, just next scene, boom. And now you're in the past. And you only figure that out in context from the way people are talking or the way some of the characters are dressed will tell you, oh, that's that character that we just saw on the show 20 years older or 30 or 40 years older. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And that's how disjointed this is, because there is no flow through. It doesn't make sense. Anthony Mackie is a beta male. He starts off and you think he's going to be an alpha male, a big hero type, kind of like a Mad Max, which they're trying to get that feel in this movie all the time, or the Death Race 2000 remake with Jason Statham. They're trying to get that kind of car feel, that car violence, action feel. Never happens. And by the way, the CGI is PlayStation 2 version kind of graphics. It is horrendous. They are horrible. Every video game you've seen since probably the year 1995 are better than the graphics that they use, the CGI they use. It is horrendous. And you don't even get to see a good car battle until the 10th episode. The last episode is the only one that has any kind of real car chase that you'll care about, quite honestly. Anthony Mackie is a beta male. He is not even trying. In almost every single scene, in almost every single episode, he is there for the paycheck. The man didn't even work out. You can see in the episodes where he's having his sex scenes, which is basically one episode, and he's getting involved with his love interest, you can see he hasn't been working out. You can see that 2020 extra chub on his body, and he doesn't care. Not that he's overweight, not that he's obese. He's just not looking fit and trim like you would expect for somebody who's living in a post-apocalypse kind of world where meals are hard to find and they're struggling. But then again, sometimes meals are right there. You know, it's 20 years after the fact and they're still finding fresh food. At one point, they're going into freezers and food's just available. They're able to turn on grills. There's electricity. There's flowing gas. There's flowing water. 20 years after a global catastrophe, which apparently it seems like in one line, and in the middle of the series, I think it's episodes 5 or 6, it's almost impossible to tell what happens in one episode to the other. They just run together and don't make sense. But I think it's episode 5 or 6 where they go through and we get one line that tells us that there may have been a nuclear catastrophe. So they're attacking nuclear power and saying, well, nuclear power, bad for the world. It destroyed the environment, which doesn't make sense because that doesn't match what we see from another character in the flashback going back 20 years and their experience of the moment that the world ended. Totally different thing. They make you think it's aliens or some kind of nuclear weapons strike. But again, the main character who doesn't have a memory is telling us, no, it's a nuclear disaster, which we don't know why he even thinks that. It makes no sense, folks. This makes no sense. The disaster is so bad, ecologically so terrible. All it's because of a nuclear power plant that went bad. The environment's horrible. They have these special kinds of lightning storms that are extra deadly, except our protagonist, Anthony Mackie, gets struck by lightning, doesn't die. He's not even wounded. He's perfectly fine. Makes you wonder. They're like, oh, we can't go outside. It's so deadly. We will die. You got struck by lightning, dude. Not special kinds of lightning. He didn't even take regular lightning damage. And this is supposed to be so much worse. It makes no sense. Anthony Mackie's character is a simp. He is a beta male. He is always wrong. He's constantly apologizing, even when he's done nothing wrong. Even when he's the one who has been wronged, he's the one apologizing as if he did something wrong. It makes no sense. His main love interest is Stephanie Beatrice, who plays the character by the name of Quiet. That's not her name. We don't know what her name is. Anthony Mackie's character, John Doe, never asked what her name is, even though he had several opportunities, and it's even hinted at in the show. In fact, it's directly stated in their love episode that, hey, you should be asking my first name. But he never does, for some odd reason. We have no idea. Instead, he just calls her Quiet. Quiet starts off as an antagonist to Anthony Mackie. So kind of like a tsundere. If you follow anime, you would say she's more of a tsundere character. Her character is not fleshed out. She doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Somewhere around episode 7, I think it is, we actually get some kind of flashback backstory that doesn't make sense, that has to do with illegal aliens. She's an illegal alien, at least she was 20 years ago, even though she looks about the same age in the show, in the show's world. She looks about the same age as the flashback going back 20 years. Makes no sense. The rules of the world don't make sense. People are there seems to be slaves who are all illegal immigrants, but some of them aren't or don't seem to be illegal aliens, and they're all disfigured, and people wear that disfigurement as some kind of decoration, some kind of jewelry, which may or may not have some other significance to it. Doesn't make sense. The rules are never fleshed out. Quiet has a brother who doesn't matter. I'm not even going to talk about him. He's one of the actors in the show. He's meaningless. He's useless. You don't. I don't remember his name. You don't need to care. He's useless. Quiet, is the love interest. Anthony Mackie falls in love with her roughly around, I think, episode 4, but realistically, episode 5. He basically falls in love with her just at the moment that they decide to have sex. I don't know why. I mean, it's obvious that she's going to be the love interest. From the very first episode, the first scene that we see of her, which is in the opening scene, it makes no sense. But you instantly know, okay, she's the love interest of the show. But she turns from not just the love interest, but going along with Disney Plus, going along with modern movies, she's actually the main character. She becomes the main character, the main lead action hero of the show. She's the fighter. She's the one, and I'm not talking like Dungeons and Dragons, Michelle Rodriguez as a barbarian, where it makes sense that she's the fighter and that sort of thing. No. Remember, Anthony Mackie's character is supposed to be this rugged, living in the outback, in the wilds of this dystopian future, having done so since he was about 10 years old. He's supposed to be a badass fighter. And she's just better in like virtually every single scene, in every single fight. She's constantly saving his life. She's constantly involved. It just doesn't make sense. And as the show continues, it basically does a bait and switch, and it becomes more about her character and her leadership, and Anthony Mackie basically simping to her. He's basically subordinate to her, and it doesn't make sense why. It really doesn't. The character of Carl, useless, doesn't matter. You'll see him on the screen a couple times. He has a couple of lines. No one cares. By the way, this show is supposed to be a comedy. And literally, I just binged all 10 episodes. So if I sound a little disjointed, I'm trying to put together and remember things from the show. It is that hard. I wasn't taking notes. I just watched it. I'm telling you my raw reaction. And I can tell you, you're not going to remember 2/3 of the show. You're not going to remember almost any of these characters. They have almost nothing memorable for a show that's supposed to be funny. This is supposed to be comedic, or at least a comedic show. It's not. There was one line throughout the entire thing. I watched 5 episodes. It's the episode with the love affair, and that's the only time that they have one line that's funny, that actually made me laugh. 1. In 10 episodes. It's sad. Okay, so Carl, he doesn't matter. Michael Carrillo, I can't tell you that he was acting well or bad because he wasn't meaningful in any way. He could have been a prop. You could have put a piece of wood in front of it and had someone voice act it. It would have been the same thing. Not because he's a bad actor. There was nothing to work with. The writing is horrendous. It's abysmal. And his character, meaningless. He's just set dressing. There's Amber, Diana Rodriguez. Now, with no disrespect to Diane Rodriguez, as far as my sister and I have a big difference here. I think that, is it Amber? Is that the right one? See, a lot of these characters are interchangeable, and they're hard to remember. But if I remember it right, Amber is the drug dealer of the show. She's the hippie drug dealer, the psychotic hippie drug dealer. And I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure Diane is trans. Not sure if they are or aren't. I think that they are. My sister said no. Never really got a good shot of the character to really be able to tell, or at least not enough that I was paying attention to, because it's not a standout character. But the character is very, very odd. And considering that this show is very, very focused on diversity and inclusion, there has to be someone on the show that was trans, and they seem to be the one. I could be wrong. Again, I'm not disrespecting. This has nothing to do with the acting, but it is telling you this. Look at what they're putting together. Every single setting, everything is diverse. There's diversity in every single city, in every background. They're in the middle of America, in the Midwest, and a dystopian future where everyone's cut off from everyone else, and it's very difficult, near impossible, to travel from not just one coast to the other. You can't even go to the East Coast, according to the story's line, but it's almost impossible to go from West Coast to the Midwest. It's so dangerous, supposedly. And yet, every single community, every backwater town and area has more diversity than you find in New York City. It doesn't make sense. So that's DEI. Amber's character, the phlebotomist, is basically meaningless. They're there for a secondary side character's love interest that you don't care about, that's telegraphed 50,000 miles away. I could have been on I could have been on Titan, the moon Titan, and I would have seen this love affair, this love interest. It's that telegraphed. It's meaningless, useless, and obvious. And somehow, this character is also impervious to death. This character, you'll see it, if you watch, please don't watch it. This is a character that survives absolute annihilation. Annihilation on the level that is not humanly survivable. Objects are destroyed surrounding that character. People are destroyed surrounding that character. And the character walks away with a wound that should be mortal, a mortally serious wound, and they walk away with a flesh wound. It is stupid. There is no threat of death, really, for the main characters. Tinker. Tinker is... I think Tinker gets mentioned as a named character at one point. There's like 3 or 4 scenes you see them in. Useless character. They're there for one thing and one thing only, and that has to do with quiet. When you see, I think it's in episode 3, when you get introduced to them, they're there to cut down on the CGI budget. Basically, Tinker is there to give Quiet a item that cuts down on the CGI budget because they had no money for this. I don't know how much this show costs, but I can tell you it was... The quality you get for each dollar they spent is abysmal. They were wasting money on this. But the CGI, which I think they're probably half the CGI budget, went towards Quiet and this one minor disfigurement that really doesn't impair Quiet's character at all. And Tinker resolves that CGI requirement, gives Quiet something that covers up what the CGI, and instantly resolved, done. It's useless. Oh, that's who Will Arnett was playing. Okay. So, to be fair, Will Arnett was playing the only character in the entire show that's worth anything. And I know Will Arnett was very much involved in getting this made and getting some of the writing done. I believe he's one of the producers. He plays the titular, one of the most important characters, Sweet Tooth. Sweet Tooth is the only actual character in the entire show. It's the best written character, has the most motivation. It took us 7 episodes to finally get a backstory to who Sweet Tooth is or why Sweet Tooth is the way they are. It's an opening scene. Within basically 10 minutes, we learn the entire backstory that we need for Sweet Tooth. Makes perfect sense. Characters fleshed out. That's the only character that makes sense. That's the only character's flashback that makes sense. And it's the only person that I cared about in the entire show. That's it. Don't care about the leads. Don't care about the relationships. The only person I cared about was Sweet Tooth and what Sweet Tooth was going through. And Sweet Tooth is in 2-3 episodes. Only person that matters. And they say Sweet Tooth was only in 2 episodes. I truly believe, or it felt like, they were in 4 episodes. And literally, every time Sweet Tooth appears on the screen and is talking or doing something, they're a better character than everyone else. Harold, which is a bag, a mysterious bag. I had more interest in there's this paper bag that Sweet Tooth, who's one of the antagonists but also a good guy, because bad guys are good guys nowadays. That's Hollywood for you today. So the bad guys are good guys. And Sweet Tooth is one of the bad guys who's a good guy. We feel for him because he's, just mentally damaged and just crazy and a psycho killer. And Sweet Tooth has this bag, brown paper bag, that has something in it. That's a mystery. We don't know what's in there. And they refer to it as Harold. I was more interested in Harold and finding out what's in the paper bag than I was about pretty much every other character in the entire series. That's how bad this show is. A paper bag sitting in a chair is more of a draw and has more impact, emotional impact on you watching it than the other characters. That's how bad this is. Stu is basically another mostly useless character, but Stu interacted a lot with Sweet Tooth, and so kind of interested. He's the fat guy who's the outsider. He's white, so he's kind of shown to have he starts off as a bad guy and then kind of has a good heart that comes out somewhat later on. Doesn't make sense. His motivations don't make sense. His actions don't make sense. The people he's aligned with doesn't make sense. It's confused. I understand where they wanted to go with this character. Did not make sense. Extra, I don't even know who that is. Don't even remember seeing Extra. They're useless. So Natalie Alarcon, you may be great as an actress. No idea, because I didn't even know you were in the show. Loud. Another person. I have no idea who you were. You were in 1 episode. I can't even remember. Useless. Meaningless. Mike. Taj Bonins. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name right. In 7 episodes, we see Taj almost always in reference to Stu, and then later in reference to Sweet Tooth. I hate his character. He's duplicitous. He betrays his own friends. He takes glee in being a bad guy and doing evil things. He's obviously someone who should have been punished, just like all the other bad guys in the show. He's someone who should not survive. He's not a good person. You do not feel empathy for this person. But he's black, and he's in the show. So he obviously turns out to be a nicer guy than we thought. And he has a storyline that keeps him going. Doesn't make sense. His character makes no sense whatsoever. His character should have died immediately. He didn't die immediately, but he should have. And the acting, so-so. Again, nothing really written there for him. His acting is passable, I guess, in this show. It's just not interesting at all. How about this? Jamie Roberts. I don't even remember who that was. No idea. Let's see. Miranda Watts. Wait a minute. Where is... Oh, there she is. So, Jamie. I'm trying to think, folks. I'm seriously. I'm trying to remember who Jamie is. If I remember it right, I think Jamie is the big bad. Well, I thought that was Neve. No, Neve Campbell is the big bad. Who's Jamie? Don't remember. I really can't remember this character. She was in 4 episodes. Meaningless. Miranda Watts. This is one of the big characters supposed to be. If there's a season 2 to this, there should not be. But if there's a season 2 to this show, she's supposed to be coming back along with Sweet Tooth, who's supposed to be coming back. Mind you, at the end of the... We end the series with, at the 10th episode, throughout the 10th episode, a bunch of characters seem like they're dead. They give us this impression that they're dead. And in every single case, every single character that they show us, they don't show their dead bodies on screen. We don't actually see them die. And then we're told, just a little bit later into the show, about 10 minutes later, and all of a sudden they tell us, oh, by the way, here's all these characters that we thought we just saw die that are going to be in a season 2 if it exists. So you just defeated all the tension that you just put in. Why did you make us think that they're dead? It's kind of like the Rise of Skywalker. Chewbacca's dead. No, he's not. It makes no sense. It just doesn't make sense, folks. Again, over and over, it doesn't make sense. And it's not fun to watch. It's not entertaining. You don't know who these characters are. You don't care about these characters. Miranda, Jamie Newman plays Miranda. Miranda, you don't care about Miranda. You don't feel for Miranda. I don't care about the love affair that's obvious and telegraphed and part of the DEI representation. It's obvious. No one cares. No one cares. And no one feels anything special for that relationship because it's not a well-portrayed relationship. It's not a well-written relationship. And her character's not a well-written character. She's just there to be a girl boss, to be a girl power in the end. And who cares? Quite literally, no one cares. Useless character. These are all people you can just cut out of the show. Literally, cut them all out. Would not have affected anything. Agent Shepard. Generic, traditional, white bad guy. He's a white guy, so that means he's a white guy, authority figure, so he's evil, and he's abusive with his power, and he dies embarrassingly. It's a trope. Useless character, do not need him. He's not intimidating when you see him. He's obviously supposed to be a sadist. He's obviously supposed to be the bad guy. He's obviously bad because he's white and he's got power. That's it. This is the Hollywood fantasy trip. This is what they get off on. And Jared Bankins does okay being the generic bad white guy with the power trip. But he's not impressive. He's not useful. And when the character goes away, you don't care. Really, you don't miss him. The show doesn't benefit from him being there or not there in any given scene. That's just sad. Okay, so here we go. So this is interesting. I didn't know this. Joe Sanoa, who I believe is a wrestler, plays Sweet Tooth in 2 of the episodes, and in 2 episodes, it's Will Arnett. I could not tell you Will Arnett is a lot thinner than Joe Cianoa. Joe Cianoa, you know when he's on the screen. He's a big guy. Not like big fat, but he's a big guy. So you can see his presence. When Will Arnett was playing him, I always thought Will Arnett was thinner. So unless Will Arnett got fat, I think that IMDb is not getting the number of episodes correct here. But I like Joe Cianoa, or maybe it's the voice acting, because Sweet Tooth always has a mask on. So anyone could be voicing it. Maybe the acting is by Joe and Will Arnett is doing the voice. Not sure. It's hard to tell. Thomas Hayden Church is supposed to be the big bad of the entire show. He's only in, they say, 2 episodes. I think he was actually in 3. He's supposed to be the big bad of this first season. He's supposed to have this motivation of being law enforcement. Again, white guy on a power trip. This is Hollywood. They hate white guys, and every white guy has to have a power trip. That's it. It's a trope. It's played poorly. His backstory doesn't really impress you. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He doesn't seem imposing really at any point. His acting, Thomas Hayden Church can be a very good actor. He can really do well in the roles that he tends to play. He's just dialing this in. You don't feel anything for him. And he's got the usual invulnerability of the main bad guy. There's a couple of scenes where you just knew he's dead. He should not be surviving. Same thing for Quiet. Same thing for Amber. They're dead. There's no way they should survive things that they survive. So again, the character is incredulous. The writing is substandard. And the acting is, they're there for the paycheck. Everybody in this feels like they're just there for the paycheck. And Thomas Hayden Church, you know, he's not trying his hardest, but he's passable. He's just there enough to get the paycheck. I don't blame him. I think he's a better actor than the material he was given in this. You'll feel bad for him. Really, you'll feel bad for the actor for being in this movie because you know he's better than this. Bill, the NSF guard, is in 2 episodes, and that is just a lie. He's in 3 scenes. Okay? He's useless. He's meaningless. I don't even know why they have him. Matthew Rimmer must be friends with somebody in the production or over at Peacock. He must have some connections because his character shouldn't be named, and he's useless. He's mentioned at the beginning of the show in the first episode. He shows up again in the last episode. Those are the 2 episodes he's in, the first and the last. Neither of those episodes, he's not consequential. His character has no real meaning. He's useless. You could have put in Carl. You could have put in Bob. You could have had Susie be in any of the roles, any of the scenes that he's in, would have been exactly the same. I can't tell you how his acting was because he wasn't acting. He showed up, he stood around, said 2 or 3 words, and was gone. He was useless. I don't even know why he's getting credit. I hope he got paid a lot of money. Neve Campbell, I'm going to come back to her in a second. And then there's Chloe Finneman. I think that's how her name is pronounced. She's in 1 episode, and I think you see a flashback of her from that 1 episode in a 2nd episode. She's supposed to be the Bloody... She's not just Mary. Her character's name is Bloody Mary. Her motivations make no sense. She's a trope. She's the ex, and the current girlfriend and the ex-girlfriend get together, and they have a cat fight, essentially. Jealousy. That's it. She's the jealous ex. And her motivation makes no sense. What she's doing in that episode and why she's doing it don't make sense. what she expects to get out of it doesn't make sense. Why she's so aggressive doesn't make sense. The character is, and she's supposed to be, this character is supposed to be a supreme badass. She's like almost every other main bad actor, every female in this, actually all the women in this. She's skinny, she's tiny, and not imposing. Look, you can have a woman who's a powerful, strong lead, not when they're trying to be a man, but being themselves. I mean, think of Sigourney Weaver. Think of Linda Hamilton. You can think of, what's her name? Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm just trying to think through a couple of them, but you can have women who are strong characters without trying to be men or trying to be a badass like Sly Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger or Bruce Willis when he was younger. But they're not. They're not imposing. They don't seem menacing. They don't seem threatening when they're supposed to. Everyone's going, oh my God, this person could take out a whole troop of people. They're terrifying. You send this person in by themselves and they'll kill everyone. They'll just wipe everyone out. And you're looking at it going, a really strong breeze will knock Mary over. She's not that big a bad guy. She's not a badass. She doesn't feel like a badass. She doesn't speak like a badass. She doesn't hold herself like a badass. She's supposed to be the quirky, kind of wild, crazy Harlequin type of person. She's not. She's just not. Again, I don't blame Chloe I'm not saying she's being a bad actress. I'm saying she was directed badly and she had horrible material to work with. The set design, horrible. It looks like this is amateur hour. This looked like a student film project. So she has nothing to work with there. Her clothing design looks straight out of a cross between 16 Candles and, Birds of Prey, the sequel for Harlequin. It's a horrible combination. And her acting's supposed to also be a combination of Molly Ringwald meets the Harlequin character. Robbie, what's her name? Robbie, who plays Harlequin. It's supposed to be that. It doesn't work. You do not feel the threat. You do not feel any importance. But yet, the show is trying to make you feel that. It's a waste of time. And then and of course, she's also hinted to be in season 2, which should never happen. But that's what you get. And then there's Neve Campbell. After Sweet Tooth, after Joe Sienoa, who I think is the best character in the entire show, the second best would be Neve Campbell. The reason for that is they say she's in 1 episode. That's not true. She's in at least 2. And she's the actual bad guy. She's the big bad boss. Great. She's intelligent. She comes off as somewhat intimidating. She definitely comes off as a thinker, that she doesn't use physicality to make herself the bad guy. It's that she thinks. She intimidates people. She plans and sets things up. That's what seems to make her the bad guy. Not that she's immortal, not that she's ultra powerful. She's not physically intimidating. She looks good. She looks feminine. She portrays herself as competent, in charge, deep thinking, intelligent, with a plan, cunning. I like her character. I think she has the second best character in the entire show. Not our protagonist, not any of the deuteragonists, the secondary characters, not the love interest. No one else has. It's her, and she is only beaten by Sweet Tooth. Those are the 2 characters I actually find interesting in the show. The only 2 people that I would actually pay attention to. If I had to watch this, if someone paid me, and I would have to be paid to go back and watch the whole thing again. But if I had to be paid to watch this, and I had to pay attention, those are the 2 characters I want to see more of. That's it. It would be Neve Campbell's character as Raven, the big bad boss, and Joe Sonoa as Sweet Tooth, who I found interesting. None of them are compelling. None of them are well written. None of them are well acted. None of them have any scenes of any real worth except for, again, one scene with Sweet Tooth where they are literally ripping off Clockwork Orange. That's it. This is really what I call bad movie making. And you can see throughout the entire show, and it's really sad. My sister noted, it's like, you keep mentioning that, look, it's girl boss, it's girl power, feminism, yay. Oh, look, I'm like, but that's what they're writing. That's what they wrote. And it doesn't make sense. It's not that, oh, this is the girl boss. It doesn't make sense. Like I said, Neve Campbell kind of makes sense, even though it's badly written, but she's like the best written character, the second best written character in the entire series. She pulls it off. She's acting, and it's half-ass acting at that, but she pulls it off. She has the gravitas for it. I have no problem with her character. I'm sure it's because of DEI. I'm sure it's because of feminism that she's got the role and they made her out to be this big bad, but at least they made her competently the bad as opposed to everyone else. And that's the sad part. This show was trying to take a video game and to give it a backstory so that you would connect to it and you would care about these characters. And there is nobody in this really that you could care about. You don't care if they live. You don't care if they die. You know who's not going to die. You know it for a fact. And it's not, Anthony Mackie's there to get paid. He was there for a paycheck, and you knew it in every single scene. I did not feel any pathos. I did not have any empathy for him. I did not fear for him. I did not care. I cared more about his car, which seemed to be one of the key characters in the show. Has a lot more importance than you would probably have thought of initially, and even that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Actually, it made no sense. When you look at the backstory and the connection between the John Doe character and his car, makes no sense. Oh, you got a car that's been sitting around for what seems like, I don't know, 10 years, 5 years. It doesn't make sense. And the battery works. And it's got gasoline that works. And the engine works sometimes, mysteriously, instantly, when it's needed, because its story demands that he needs to have the car work. And it's filled with food when the story needs it, because it has to be. It doesn't make any sense, folks. None of this makes sense. I'm trying to remember this and think of something that makes it worth watching this. And I can tell you, there really, really isn't. They're telling you, at one point they tell you, where is it here? Where's that scene? They just had it up on the screen. This is from the twisted minds behind Deadpool and Zombieland. And I don't know which minds. Notice they didn't mention who. I don't know who's behind this. But what I can tell you about the people that are behind this, they're brain dead themselves. They're not putting in their best effort. They may have been involved in Deadpool. They may have been involved in Zombieland. And they're half-assing it for this. They just were there to get paid. And Peacock is trying to use everything it can to try and convince you that this is worth your time. It's really not. This is their trailer. It's completely useless. Now, again, Neve Campbell. Interesting. Neve Campbell, this is one of the best scenes, believe it or not, in the show. Neve Campbell is, and it's so obvious and blatant that she is the bad guy and she's scheming and she's got her own little plan. It's so obvious. And you knew it instantly. There's not even like, ooh, maybe. But at least she has chemistry. She comes off as interesting. She's She's worth watching on the screen. I like her look. I like her appeal. You know, she's got this look like, oh, I've got more going on. Love that. She actually worked. Anthony Mackie looks like this almost all the way through the entire show. This is your simp beta male lead of the show. And he's constantly looking like this because Anthony Mackie just doesn't care. He just is there for the paycheck. It really feels like it. Yeah, this was a hit PlayStation game. Evelyn, one of the best characters, it's a car. And the car, I'm more concerned and more interested in the car than I was most of these actors. Yeah, oh, by the way, there's a ticking time bomb in the game. In the story, there's a ticking time. And time is arbitrary in this show. You really just don't know how much time things are taking. You jump from the past to the present. You jump from one location to another. It just doesn't make sense. None of this, really, it doesn't make any sense. This is a dumb scene. The way the characters interact with each other. And by the way, these are your, again, where is it here? Where is it? So here's love interest, and here's, your lead. And yeah, she might as well be pointing the gun at you, the audience. This is about as good as the interactions get between these two. They're almost never more interesting, more emotional, more compelling than this moment right here, which is, I think, in the second episode. It could be the first. It doesn't really make a difference because they never get more interesting than this at all. And by the way, the jokes don't get any better at all. Yeah. Oh, by the way, you never see this guy again. Where's that black guy? This black guy, you never see him again. You see him once. You never see him again. He's meaningless. He's useless. His conversation, he's only on the screen to fill out the diversity, equity, inclusion quota because they needed another black person to fill in their quota, the ratio of people of color in the show to qualify for Hollywood and their mandates. And he gives us a foreshadowing of Sweet Tooth. That's his only reason for existing. He's useless. Useless. Some of these cars, some of the locations are supposed to be callbacks to the video game. If you don't know the video game, you won't care. They're not done well. And again, the graphics are horrendous. I mean, horrendous. There's Sweet Tooth. And here you go. One of the best scenes with Sweet Tooth. And if you have ever seen Clockwork Orange, this is a ripoff of one of the best scenes in A Clockwork Orange. And they do it here. I'm sure they're going to call it an homage. They stole the music. They stole the slow motion. They stole the tempo. They stole the meaning. They stole it all. And it kind of works with Sweet Tooth. But the fact that it's in this show makes it just aggravating. Yeah, this is some of the best parts of the show. Again, Sweet Tooth, one of the best. Anthony Mackie, no good. Nope, no good. Yes. Yes. Nope. No. Those are some, by the way, here's the graphics. Here are the graphics, folks. I want you to see this. Where is it? Let's see if we can, I'm going to try and show you the graphics here because they're this bad. These are the graphics. There. Do you see that? That looks like crap. That's the show. This is what you get. This is what Peacock thinks is action. This is fast-paced, deep action. You're involved on the edge of your seat. I have seen dozens of indie video games that have better action. I have seen horrendous anime that have better action. Okay? You want to see some action that's really interesting? I Am Atomic. Type that into Google or into Rumble. Do that into a search engine and look for I Am Atomic. And look for that scene. What you're going to find is eminence in the shadow. That one scene in that anime is better than the 10 episodes of Twisted Metal. There's more tension, more excitement, more of a thrill in that scene, which is about 35 seconds long, than in, I think it's 10 hours? I don't know. In 10 episodes of Twisted Metal. Just to give you and the action scenes, forget it. This is the action scenes here. Did you see that? Take a look at this. I mean, seriously, folks. This is the big action scene. It's a spoiler. This is the big action scene. This is the big battle. This is what it was all about in the first season. Does any of that look compelling to you? Yeah, it looks like an overhead for a pretty bad video game. It's not even good video game quality. It's not detailed. It's not clear who's doing what or where they're doing it or why or how. It's just a bunch of random CGI. It's not compelling at all. And I'm sure this is CGI. This may have been made by an AI. I would not be surprised if all the CG in this movie was made by an AI. It would not surprise me at all, because this is what you get. And it looks like it's made by an AI, and not a high quality AI at that. Dumb scene. Dumb scene. It's not funny, folks. It wasn't funny in the show. It's not funny in the commercial. Dumb scene. Doesn't make sense. Not funny. Yeah. You could skip this in a heartbeat and lose nothing. It is not compelling. It is not worthwhile. I don't know how to say it more. Do a show about Sweet Tooth. Get some good writers. Maybe it's interesting. Do a show about Neve Campbell and her character Raven, and get some good writers, and put some money into set design, and maybe it's interesting. Get some actual graphic artists instead of using an AI to actually make an action scene. And maybe, hey, here's a neat idea. Maybe get some stuntmen to do live action stunts, and maybe it will be worthwhile. But this certainly isn't. I want to try and see if I can find what the budget was for this thing. What was the budget? By the way, currently it's rated 7 out of 10 on 5,000 views. Well, no one's watching the show, so I'm not surprised. Someone rated it 10. IMDb is biased. There's no way. This isn't a 7.5. This isn't a 10. This is like a 4. And anyone who's telling you it's higher than a 4 is lying to you. They're getting paid. Because I just don't see where they could come up with that. Story. The story follows a motor-mouthed outsider offered a chance at a better life, but only if he can successfully deliver a mysterious package across a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Yeah, that sounds a lot more interesting than what you actually get to see on screen, because that's not what's happening in the story. Really isn't. I know the review says, very entertaining. No, it wasn't. No, not even close. Twisted Metal is absolutely bananas, but it works. No, it doesn't. It's one of the more interesting new shows that I've seen this year. This year sucks, just like 2022. We're getting nothing but crap from the streaming services. So saying that this is one of the better crap shows really doesn't help you. Is it better than She-Hulk? My sister said yes. I'd say probably not, but it's not a lot better. And is it better than Nick Fury and Secret Invasion? Yeah, but that's not saying that you have a good show. Everything should be better than that because that was just crap. Let's see what else we got. You can't really compare it to anything since there's never been anything quite like it. That's a lie. Logan's Run, both the original and the remake of Death Race, Carmageddon, Knight Rider. There's a lot of things that this is stealing from. I mentioned A Clockwork Orange. There's a lot of stuff that it's stealing from, all of it better. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's like this, and this is the worst of them all. The series is based off of a PlayStation game of the same name. Yes, and the video game is better. All versions of the video game are better than the show. Save yourself time and money. Go play the video game. Don't watch the series. It's about a quirky outsider. He's not really quirky. Who's offered a chance at a better life if he can deliver a mysterious package across a post-apocalyptic world, all the while by being chased. All the while by being chased. This isn't a human being writing this. This is not either someone who doesn't speak English is watching this or someone who doesn't know how to write. This might be an AI. No one says all the while by being chased by a bunch. No one says that. No one speaks like this. No one speaks like this. This isn't a real review. All the while by being chased by a bunch of different violent maniacs trying to stop him. He's helped from a badass car thief. No, she's not. She's not badass. No, she's girl boss, but she's not badass. And you never feel like she's badass. Ever. Who is the perfect sidekick for him? No, she's not. She's hateful. She's hateful to him. She is vindictive and mean to him. Their chemistry doesn't exist. They wrote a chemistry for them. They wrote them to have a love interest. They're not compelling. You do not feel like they have an interest in each other at all, at any point. And in fact, she is a bitch. And you see it, it's clear, it's obvious, and you're wondering, why is Anthony Mackie putting up with this? The character would never do this. It's yet another example of characters doing things that don't make sense based on what we've been told sporadically about these characters. None of them make sense. But hey, that's one of the reviews. 35 people found it helpful. 5 people disagree. I also disagree. They said it's an 8 out of 10. I'm telling you, they saw some other TV series. I don't know what they were watching. It wasn't the same thing I saw. Can I find out how much? $72 million. Wow. They spent $72 million on this. What an incredible waste of money. No wonder Peacock is in such financial trouble. This is horrendous. Will there be a season 2? No. No, there will not be a season 2. There's absolutely no reason for there to be a season 2. Let me finish up with this thought for you folks. The only thing that kind of was interesting was episode 10. If you must go to Peacock, which I don't see any reason why you should, And if you must watch the Twisted Metal show on Peacock, which you really shouldn't, and if you have to watch the series, watch episode 10. That's it. Trust me, you don't need to watch anything else. You're not going to learn more or be more compelled by any of the characters or any of the story. All of the interesting characters, which are Sweet Tooth and Raven, the two characters that you need to watch and have any kind of screen presence, they're in episode 10. The storyline is in episode 10. The action is in episode 10. Everything you need is in episode 10. If you must watch it, watch episode 10, toss away the rest. You don't need to see the other 9. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your energy, and you're not going to get anything better from watching any other episode of it. And it isn't worth getting a season 2. Nothing is compelling enough to watch this again, let alone to watch more of it. At least that's how I feel about it. Now, I'm the old man. I'm half a century old. You may see it and go, Mike, I think it's the best thing that's ever been made. I don't know how you would come up with that idea. I don't know how drunk or on drugs you have to be to come up with that idea. But maybe you do. And if you do, tell me why. Maybe you think there was a better character. If you tortured yourself and watched this, fantastic. Tell me who you think was the best character. Tell me how many times did you laugh throughout the show? I laughed once. How many times did you laugh? Did you like any of the characters besides Sweet Tooth and Raven? Did any of the other side characters, background characters, the diversity characters, did any of them actually, do you care? Whether they lived, they died, who they were, what they did, why they did it. Do you care? I'd like to hear it, because I don't. I literally did not care. But again, this is how I feel about it. Maybe you'll feel a little bit different. I want to hear what you have to say. Leave me a message. Tell me what you thought. I thank you for taking the time to hear me rant and just ramble about this show that I just saw. That, I had to get the poison out of the system. Thank you for giving me that time, that catharsis. And I look forward to hearing what you have to say very soon. Thanks, folks.